He's running for president, and if he's going to run the country the way he ran our business, I wouldn't want him there. He would be so out of touch with the average person in this country. How could you care? How could you care for the average working person if you feel that way?
Day one, President Romney immediately approves the Keystone Pipeline, creating thousands of jobs that Obama blocked. President Romney introduces tax cuts and reforms that reward job creators, not punish them. President Romney issues order to begin replacing Obamacare with common sense health care reform. That's what a Romney presidency will be like.
I'm joined again by George Will, Donna Brazile, Matthew Dowd, Laura Ingraham, Gavin Newsom. And George, let me go to you because we saw this week that the Obama campaign and the Democrats begin this all-out assault on Bain Capital, Romney's tenure there. Joe Biden gave a blistering speech. We saw the ads, and they believe this is the best way to turn Romney's business experience into a negative. He calls it character assassination. I guess my question is, will it work better in the general than it did in the primaries? We saw Newt Gingrich try it.
I don't think so. First of all, because the people making this argument have presided over an absolute wonder, which is we have 365,000 fewer jobs today than we had when the recovery started in June 2009. Think of that. A recovery that subtracts from the total jobs in the country. They're focusing in this one ad on a steel mill at a time in the 90s when in 1 year, the American steel industry, the 6 largest firms, lost $3 billion. The industry had already shed 200,000 jobs as a result of a steel glut in the world. Bain comes in. Now, the accusation in the ad is Bain came in as vultures to suck the wealth out and go away. Bain invested $100 million in this. That's a funny way of sucking wealth out of it.
Well, they buy up companies, George. They sell the assets, lay off the workers, and then leave town. There's more to this Bain thing than just one company and one industry. I think it's a large story. And since Mitt Romney won't talk about exactly how he will create jobs, he gives us a number, and it changes with the weather. Look, this is a continuation of where both Rick Perry as well as Newt Gingrich they had these attacks, and then the Republicans say, no, you're attacking free enterprise. This was a way of doing business, and I think the Obama campaign is right to use it. Ted Kennedy used it effectively in 1994, and it's going to be used again and again until Mitt Romney can explain exactly what he was doing at that time.
Is it enough, Laura, for Mitt Romney to point it back to the overall economy, as George Will just did right there? Because he has gotten into a little bit of trouble talking about how many jobs were created. He says 100,000 jobs were created, but he counts all the jobs that followed him, but none of the job losses.
Yeah, I never thought that was the best way to go with Bain, because, look, say I created, you open yourself up for some criticism. But I do think it's right for him to say, look, my record, examine my record, absolutely. But, Mr. President, you did meet 2 weeks ago with the head of the Blackstone Group in New York, big donors in private equity throughout the United States in Obama's camp. And I don't recall, I look back in the 90s and to look to see if Obama had given any speeches in the state legislature or otherwise against private equity firms. I'd never seen anything written by him, and I might have missed it, but in my research I haven't found any great proclamations about the concern about how private equity was, I guess, vampiring all over the United States. This is clearly a campaign tactic. I don't think in the end it ends up working. I think that the spotlight has to be on still. Are you better off than you were 3.5, 4 years ago? The president will try to get away from that metric, but his own standards of measurement stay out there. We were going to create more jobs. We were going to have more growth in this country. Those things have not happened.
Look, Bain is and was in the business of wealth creation. They're in the business of profit. There's nothing inherently wrong about that. Not job creation. In order to maximize profit, you've got to minimize costs. What's the biggest cost in a business? Personnel. Reducing jobs is the business of Bain, not creating jobs. This is the proof point of the Romney campaign, that he can create jobs, that he has a better record. He's 47th out of 50 states in job creation when he was chief executive of Massachusetts. He wants to make the case at Bain, and he has made it aggressively for years and years and years. It's absolutely fair game to question that as a basis of his run for president. So I think it's a very shrewd campaign ad. I think it's a very important point in this election that Obama hit this hard.
How would you defend against it?
Well, the situation here is, I think Mitt Romney is vulnerable on this. He was vulnerable in the Republican primary if Newt Gingrich or Rick Santorum had actually made a well-done message and credible message on this and put weight behind it. I think the problem Barack Obama has is that, one, they haven't done this consistently enough. They haven't done enough behind this. They haven't done enough ads behind this. And as Laura said, I think he lacks some credibility on this. You can't say on one hand, say how evil these private equity firms are and how bad they are and how bad they are for the country, and then say, oh, by the way, because I'm doing good for the country, I'm going to take money from them.
Bain people support Obama. Some Bain people are giving money to Obama.
But I think in the end, when we're having an economic argument where people are saying they're tired of government, us losing jobs in government, they also do not like big corporations. And if this is a big corporations backing Mitt Romney versus big government backing Barack Obama, that is, in independents' minds, kind of a stalemate.
We'll take the money so that we can defend the president's record because, you know, the one thing that Democrats have to do is to be confident about some of the things that we have accomplished. I mean,
but there is hypocrisy, Donna. There is hypocrisy in it.
But there's private sector growth. There's been a loss of jobs at the public sector, and the Republicans have cut a lot of state and local jobs. Manufacturing jobs are up, 11 good, strong quarters. I mean, Mitt Romney is not going to win by talking down the economy and hoping that the economy goes in a tank so that he can rescue it.
Labor participation rate is disastrous.
The labor
it's down to
force,
1963 levels, Donna. That is not something to stand up and say, gosh, I'm proud of it. We have fewer people working in our economy as a percentage of the overall population.
We're coming out of a deep recession that requires all hands on deck, a balanced solution to the problem, and what we're having is just a one-way conversation.
All right, so the Democrats can't produce a budget in 3.5 years. That's
difficult to talk.
Senate Democrats?
It is difficult to talk in the context of a campaign about the realities of how a capitalist economy works. I'll give you an example. 2001, the iPod is invented. 10 years later, all the people who worked at Tower Records and elsewhere, remember Records?
Oh, yes.
They're gone. And that's a good thing. Now, Borders is gone in large measure because of Amazon and Kindle. Do we want to repeal Amazon and Kindle? This is the way the world works. There is churning, there is friction, there are job losses, and net job creation.
Well, but you know, it doesn't feel like that if you work for Kodak, where they had 19,000 jobs and are bankrupt. And you contrast that to the great wealth creator of our times, that's Facebook, and this IPO, $100+ billion market cap, only 3,000 jobs. So there's this retooling of the economy creates tremendous anxiety. Going after Bain, that participated in the creation of that anxiety, as you argue, I think is good politics, and I think it's sound policy to have that discussion and that debate.
I want to get to Facebook in a little bit, but first we also saw this flurry this week over Reverend Wright, the return of Reverend Wright, at least on the front page for a day. It was over, you see it right there, a proposal given to Joe Ricketts, who's the head of a super PAC supporting Mitt Romney, to bring back this issue. Now, as I said in my interviews, George, Mitt Romney's repudiated, Joe Ricketts ended up repudiating, but this was a plan that was made, and it created all kinds of excitement for about 48 hours.
Joe Ricketts didn't end up repudiating it. He repudiated it the instant he saw it. His group is called End Spending. That's what he's interested in, not the social issues, nothing else. He asked, through some of his people, for someone to produce a plan. What they got was a plan that ignored what he's interested in and went after Reverend Wright and all this other stuff. Ricketts took one look at it and said no. Now, the New York Times, that didn't fit their narrative, billionaire behaving responsibly. So they said he's studying it. They have commissioned this. They've neglected the whole fact, which was that this is a small story with a nice ending, which is a responsible, affluent man said no.
The thing about these things, and all of us who've been in politics see these crazy stuff that people do. I know Fred Davis. Fred Davis worked for me in 2004 in the Bush campaign. He worked for me.
He made this proposal.
In the 2006 in the Arnold Schwarzenegger campaign. Fred Davis is a creative guy, but Fred Davis requires adult supervision. Just like a lot of media guys, they require adult supervision. The problem is Mitt Romney didn't, this is not going to be an issue. Mitt Romney repudiated this thing not because it was going to be effective and he thought it might work and I don't want to do it. Nobody wants to talk about this. Mitt Romney knows that if we're talking about Reverend Wright, we're not talking about the economy, and if we're not talking about the economy, that benefits Barack Obama.
There's something else going on here, though. We were seeing a couple of weeks ago evidence now. Obama campaign has an enemies list where Mr. Vandersloot, very wealthy man getting involved in politics, he was being demonized for various, social issues and so forth. This is another individual, Joe Ricketts, TD Ameritrade, billionaire. who does ending spending. As George said, it's they focus on economic issues. This, to me, was a shot across the bow. That if you are a wealthy,
from the Obama campaign.
if you are a wealthy person in the United States, you happen to be conservative, you're going to get involved in this election, then we're going to watch everything that you do, and you sort of step over the line. You talk about past associations of President Obama, anything like that. We will try to destroy you. This man did not even, as far as I know, he didn't even see this proposal. I believe, George. And the idea that he was considering it was a total false narrative put forward by the New York Times to send a message to other people, don't you dare get involved in this election in any type of, quote, controversial way.
The difference was his name appeared in it with a quote that said, had John McCain produced a similar ad, Barack Obama would not be president today, which makes this more plausible that, George, maybe there's a gray area between what the New York Times said and what you're saying, and more likely that there was some discussion. They had a URL, Character Matters, 54-page comprehensive report. They found and identified key leaders to lead. I'm not convinced.
Is the president going to be held responsible for everything that MoveOn.org PAC said? That I think Jake Tapper raised this issue last week. That, like, why does it always go one way? Where the Republican candidate has to repudiate everything that some organization.
The president's been held accountable for Bill Maher and some others, and for Hillary Rose.
Oh, really?
Certainly he was
for Bill Maher?
He was
giving that money back to Bill Maher?
You got questions about it, but don't you think this was more likely leaked by somebody inside who didn't want this campaign to go forward?
Who knows? I don't know. The New York Times described it as someone who was uncomfortable with the tone.
Yeah.
But who could it be? It could be anyone. A couple of different people saw this.
It could have been Fred. I mean, Fred could have leaked this. Fred did the witch ad for Christine.
But above the fold in the New York Times?
These guys, these media guys think that if you're talking about them, it's a good thing. Again, this is a situation where Mitt Romney does not want to be talking about Reverend Wright. Mitt Romney does not want to be talking about contraception. Mitt Romney doesn't want to be talking about any of these social issues. Mitt Romney wants to be talking about...
But why can't other people talk about it?
All I'm saying is Mitt Romney doesn't want to talk about anything but the economy.
Ending spending isn't Mitt Romney.
Well, George,